Have you ever found yourself counting down the days until your next vacation? Or perhaps waiting impatiently for a package to arrive? We humans are constantly watching the clock, planning our futures, and measuring our lives in days, months, and years. But what if I told you that one of the most profound prayers in ancient literature challenges us to confront a startling truth, that our lives are actually much shorter than we imagine? What if your entire existence could be measured with the span of your hand? According to the ancient Hebrew poet who wrote Psalm 39 nearly 3,000 years ago, that's precisely how brief our lives truly are. You have made my days a mere handbreadth. The span of my years is as nothing before you. Everyone is but a breath, even those who seem secure. Welcome to our exploration of Psalm 39, one of the most introspective and existentially challenging prayers in the biblical book of Psalms. My name is your name, and today we're diving deep into this ancient prayer that continues to resonate with countless seekers across cultures and generations. The book of Psalms, or Tehillim in Hebrew, contains 150 poems composed between approximately 1440 and 586 BCE. These poems served as the ancient Israelites' prayer book and hymnal. Psalm 39 specifically is attributed to David, the shepherd who became king of Israel around 1010 BCE. While some scholars debate this attribution, what's certain is that this psalm captures a powerful human struggle between silence and speech, between accepting life's brevity and questioning God about suffering. Let's set the historical context. The ancient Near East in the 10th century BCE was a world of constant warfare, where life expectancy rarely exceeded 40 years. Disease, famine, and violence claimed lives daily. In this precarious environment, questions about life's meaning and duration weren't merely philosophical, they were urgently practical. Psalm 39 begins with a remarkable scene. The poet is experiencing profound suffering, yet makes a deliberate decision to remain silent. Let's listen to these opening verses. I said, I will watch my ways and keep my tongue from sin. I will put a muzzle on my mouth while in the presence of the wicked. So I remained utterly silent, not even saying anything good. But my anguish increased, my heart grew hot within me. While I meditated, the fire burned. Then I spoke with my tongue. Can you feel the tension? The psalmist is literally biting his tongue, afraid that if he speaks, he might say something inappropriate or sinful. But this enforced silence only intensifies his inner turmoil. There's a powerful psychological insight here that modern therapists would recognize. Suppressing our emotions often only magnifies them. The Hebrew word used here for muzzle is masam, which refers to a physical restraint placed on an animal's mouth. The poet sees himself as needing to be physically restrained from speaking out. This imagery would have resonated powerfully with an agrarian society where working animals were commonplace. What finally breaks this self-imposed silence? Not anger, not accusation, but a profound existential question. The psalmist turns to God with what may be one of the most universal human inquiries. Show me, Lord, my life sinned and the number of my days. Let me know how fleeting my life is. You have made my days a mere handbreadth. The span of my years is as nothing before you. Everyone is but a breath, even those who seem secure. The Hebrew word used here, hevel, often translated as breath or vapor, is the same word that appears repeatedly in the book of Ecclesiastes. It refers to something insubstantial, temporary, and fleeting. Picture your breath on a cold winter morning, visible for a moment, then gone. That, according to the psalmist, is the true measure of human life. This perspective stands in stark contrast to our modern obsession with longevity, anti-aging, and extending human lifespans. While we invest billions in technologies to delay death, the ancient wisdom of Psalm 39 suggests that acknowledging life's brevity might actually be the key to living wisely. Consider this. According to the United Nations, global life expectancy reached 72.8 years in 2019. That might seem substantial compared to ancient times, but on the cosmic scale, compared to the 13.8 billion years of our universe's existence, our lives remain incredibly brief, just as the psalmist observed. The brevity of life serves as a central theme throughout Psalm 39. In verse 6, the poet continues, Surely everyone goes around like a mere phantom. In vain they rush about, heaping up wealth without knowing whose it will finally be. The Hebrew word tselem, translated here as phantom, literally means image or shadow. The psalmist sees humans as shadow-like figures, insubstantial and transient. There's a fascinating parallel here with Plato's famous allegory of the cave, written centuries later around 380 BCE, where humans are depicted as seeing only shadows of reality. This concept challenges us to reconsider our priorities. A 2019 study from the Federal Reserve found that the wealthiest 10% of Americans own 70% of the country's wealth. Yet Psalm 39 reminds us that accumulation without purpose ultimately leads nowhere. They heap up wealth without knowing whose it will finally be. But Psalm 39 doesn't simply leave us contemplating life's brevity. It moves from observation to petition, from philosophy to prayer. The psalmist turns to God. But now, Lord, what do I look for? My hope is in you. Save me from all my transgressions. Do not make me the scorn of fools. In ancient Hebrew thought, there was a strong connection between sin and suffering. Many believed that physical ailments or misfortunes were direct consequences of moral failings. The psalmist acknowledges his own imperfection while appealing to God for deliverance. The term transgressions comes from the Hebrew pesha, which implies rebellion or breaking away from authority. It's not just about breaking rules, but about betraying a relationship, specifically the covenant relationship between God and his people established at Mount Sinai around 1446 BCE according to biblical chronology. There's a vulnerable honesty in verse 9 as the prayer continues. I was silent. I would not open my mouth, for you are the one who has done this. This is a difficult passage that has troubled interpreters for centuries. The psalmist attributes his suffering directly to God, a bold claim that reflects the ancient Hebrew belief in God's sovereignty over all events, both good and bad. This perspective appears throughout the Hebrew scriptures, perhaps most famously in the book of Job, composed between the 7th and 4th centuries BCE. Modern readers might struggle with this theology. How could a loving God cause suffering? But for the ancient Israelites, this view actually provided comfort. If God controlled even suffering, then suffering itself must ultimately serve some purpose within God's larger plan. The prayer intensifies with an urgent plea in verses 10 to 11. Remove your scourge from me. I am overcome by the blow of your hand. When you rebuke and discipline anyone for their sin, you consume their wealth like a moth. Surely everyone is but a breath. The image of God's hand appears frequently in ancient Near Eastern literature, representing divine power and intervention. Archaeological findings from Mesopotamia and Egypt dating back to 2500 BCE show divine hands symbolizing either blessing or judgment. The comparison to a moth-consuming fabric is particularly vivid. Moths were common household pests in the ancient world, capable of destroying valuable textiles and stored goods. Before modern preservation methods, a moth infestation could literally consume a family's wealth. The psalmist sees God's discipline operating in a similar way, gradually but inevitably diminishing human achievements. Yet even in this hard reality, the psalm doesn't descend into despair. Instead, it culminates in one of the Bible's most beautiful prayers. Hear my prayer, Lord, listen to my cry for help. Do not be deaf to my weeping. I dwell with you as a foreigner, a stranger, as all my ancestors were. Look away from me, that I may enjoy life again before I depart and am no more. The concept of being a foreigner or stranger Hebrew carried significant weight in ancient Israeli society. The Law of Moses, codified around 1440 BCE, repeatedly commanded special protection for foreigners who lacked the social support and land rights of native Israelites. By identifying himself as a foreigner in relation to God, the psalmist acknowledges his dependence and temporary status. This final plea contains a fascinating paradox. The psalmist asks God to both hear his prayer and to look away from him. He seeks divine attention and divine forbearance simultaneously. This tension reflects the human experience of desiring both connection with the transcendent and freedom from constant divine scrutiny. So what wisdom can we draw from this ancient prayer for our modern lives? First, Psalm 39 invites us to practice what psychologists today call mortality awareness. Research published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology in 2017 found that contemplating death actually increases people's gratitude for life and promotes more meaningful goal setting. By acknowledging life's brevity, we are more likely to invest our limited time in what truly matters. Second, the psalm reminds us of the danger of accumulating without purpose. A 2010 Princeton University study famously found that emotional well-being doesn't increase significantly beyond an annual income of $75,000. Additional wealth often brings additional stress rather than additional happiness. The psalmist's critique of those who heap up wealth without knowing whose it will finally be remains profoundly relevant in our consumer-driven society. Third, Psalm 39 gives us permission to bring our most honest complaints, fears, and questions before God. The poet doesn't sanitize his emotions or pretend that everything makes sense. Instead, he expresses raw confusion and even attributes his suffering directly to God. This radical honesty stands in contrast to superficial religious expressions that avoid difficult questions. Finally, the psalm positions us as temporary residents on this earth, foreigners and strangers in the psalmist's language. This perspective has profound ethical implications. If we're just passing through, perhaps we should focus less on acquisition and more on contribution. Perhaps we should concern ourselves more with leaving the world better than we found it. Recent archaeological discoveries in the city of David in Jerusalem, dating to around the 10th century BCE, the time traditionally associated with King David, include seals and inscriptions that provide tangible connections to the biblical world. These findings remind us that the author of Psalm 39 was not engaged in abstract philosophizing, but responding to the concrete challenges of life in a specific historical context. The Jewish sage Hillel, who lived around 30 BCE, famously asked three questions that echo the themes of Psalm 39. If I am not for myself, who will be for me? If I am only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when? Like the psalmist, Hillel recognized that acknowledging life's brevity should motivate meaningful action in the present. Let's revisit the core message of Psalm 39. The prayer begins with silence, moves through complaint and acknowledgement of life's brevity, and ends with a request for God to both hear and release. Throughout, it maintains a creative tension between human insignificance and divine attention. The ancient Hebrew word Selah appears in this psalm, as it does in many others. While its precise meaning remains debated among scholars, many believe it indicates a musical interlude or a moment for reflection. Let's take our own Selah moment now to consider. If we truly believed our lives were as brief as a handbreadth, what would we do differently? What conversations would we have? What risks would we take? What wrongs would we forgive? Mortality awareness doesn't have to be morbid. In fact, studies conducted at the University of Kentucky in 2015 found that people who contemplated their own mortality subsequently reported higher levels of gratitude and commitment to positive life goals. The ancient wisdom of Psalm 39 anticipated these findings by millennia. In Jewish tradition, Psalm 39 is sometimes recited during the days of awe between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, a period of intense self-examination that dates back at least to the time of the Second Temple, 516 BCE to 70 CE. During this time, Jews contemplate their mortality and seek reconciliation with both God and their fellow humans. Similarly, Christian theologians throughout history have found in this psalm a profound meditation on what they call memento mori, the remembrance of death. The medieval tradition of depicting skulls in artwork wasn't meant to be macabre, but to remind viewers of the transience of earthly pleasures and the importance of spiritual preparation. Islamic tradition, though developing later than the composition of the Psalms, contains similar themes. The Prophet Muhammad, who lived from 570 to 632 CE, reportedly advised his followers to remember frequently the destroyer of pleasures, referring to death as a reminder to live virtuously. This cross-cultural recognition of life's brevity suggests that the wisdom of Psalm 39 speaks to something fundamentally human, transcending specific religious traditions. The psalm's emphasis on silence also deserves our attention. The poet begins by imposing silence on himself, fearing that speech might lead to sin. This self-censorship ultimately fails. The suppressed emotions only grow hotter until they must find expression. There's a powerful lesson here about the importance of appropriate emotional processing. Contemporary psychological research, including a 2018 study published in the Journal of Personality, confirms that emotional suppression often leads to greater psychological distress and even physical health problems. But notice that when the psalmist finally breaks his silence, he doesn't lash out at others. Instead, he directs his questions and complaints to God. This vertical rather than horizontal expression of distress represents a constructive channeling of negative emotions. In our age of social media outrage, where people routinely direct their frustrations at others online, the psalmist's approach offers a healthier alternative. According to a 2019 Pew Research study, 59% of Americans believe social media has made it easier to direct anger at others. Psalm 39 suggests redirecting our complaints toward the divine, a listener big enough to absorb our anger without being damaged by it. As we approach the conclusion of our exploration, let's consider one final aspect of Psalm 39, its honesty about human fragility. The psalmist doesn't pretend to have everything figured out. He acknowledges confusion, pain, and limitation. This vulnerability stands in contrast to much of our contemporary culture, which often celebrates strength, certainty, and self-sufficiency. A 2018 survey by the American Psychological Association found that 42% of Americans feel they could be doing more to manage stress, yet many avoid seeking help due to perceived stigma. Psalm 39 offers an ancient alternative, a model of honest acknowledgement of human limitation combined with hopeful appeal to something greater than ourselves. The psalmist knows he doesn't have all the answers, but he knows where to direct his questions. As we close this journey through Psalm 39, I invite you to carry its wisdom with you. Remember that by the Psalm's measure, your life is but a handbreadth, not to fill you with anxiety, but to inspire intentional living. Consider what truly deserves your limited time and attention. Like the psalmist, give yourself permission to honestly express your confusion and complaints, not by lashing out horizontally at others, but by directing them vertically in prayer. And remember that acknowledging your status as a foreigner and stranger in this world might actually be the first step toward finding your true home. The words written nearly 3 millennia ago continue to speak with remarkable relevance. Everyone is but a breath, even those who seem secure. But in the recognition of this brevity, we find not despair but clarity about what truly matters in the brief, beautiful gift we call human life. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of Psalm 39. Until next time, may you count your days wisely that you might gain a heart of wisdom. Before you go, I want to personally invite you to be part of our growing community here at Prayer Universe. If this video touched your heart or brought you peace, take a moment to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a prayer or message that can uplift your spirit. But most importantly, I'd love to hear from you. In the comments below, share just one word or phrase of motivation that this video inspired in you, whether it's hope, gratitude, peace, or something else. Your words matter deeply to us because they help guide the content we create for this channel. Together, let's build a space filled with faith, encouragement, and connection. Thank you for being here, and remember, every prayer counts. See you in the next one.